Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and today we're going to be talking about weapon TMRs. We're going to talk about why I think they are completely overrated, and why they may be best in slot in some situations. Those situations are very rare, and people are overhyping weapon TMRs significantly. Let's go ahead and dig in. So probably the biggest discussion around this has been with Siros Katana right now. There are a lot of other discussions going on with the Crimson Rapier and Inga's staff as well, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. But I wanted to focus on O's TMR. One, because I am a huge Sir-O fan. Two, because Astoria is going to be coming out in the near future. And there are a lot of people that swear that O's TMR is the best, the only TMR for Astoria, and they say it's best in slot is the word that everybody's using. And I actually hard disagree with that looking at the numbers. I understand why people use O's TMR, and it's not because it's quote unquote best in slot. I would say it's because Astrius doesn't need to actually use an ability from a TMR, right? Because the most valuable thing from TMRs almost entirely is their ability. One, the reason O's TMR is best in slot is because he doesn't need an ability, right? And two, if you're going for raw damage, it's not even the highest raw damage weapon that Astrius could use. So it's very interesting to me, the arguments that people make for this, because really it comes down to his ability usage, and that's why people are using O's TMR. It's not because O's TMR is the best damage that Astrius is going to be able to get. It's not because it is the best in slot only way to go. It's because they found a way to optimize their build for him, and that's what works for them. And you don't have to follow that build, because the differences between a Sir-O Katana Astoria versus a non-Sir-O Katana Astoria are very minimal, and it's going to completely come down to how you do your TMR runes. So what's my argument? Why am I talking about this? Well, a lot of people say, well, Sir-O's Katana is best in slot. This is what I'm hearing from people, because of the raw attack value that you get from the runes, right? Because you're not splitting the attack, right? You get a raw plus 90 attack onto the weapon. You're not splitting it, right? Where normally that plus 90 attack would be on an accessory or a armor. Because it's the second highest value, it gets cut in half. So you're getting that extra plus 45 attack. Or that plus 90 attack. That's what I hear. So let's talk about Sir-O's Katana's attack value. With that plus 90 attack, you're going to be sitting at 187 attack, okay? Now, let's talk about Purple Lightning plus 5. Having a Purple Lightning plus 5 with an additional plus 45 attack, right? Because that attack is halved, is 204 attack. Literally, it's higher. The Quelsard, which is the katana that Astrius comes out with, has 171 attack, plus that 45 attack, is going to leave you with 216 attack. The Osafune plus 6, which will be coming out in the near future. Base attack of 185 if you're going with the assault value. I do want to point out that the Osafune plus 6 does also have an aim version for plus 24 accuracy and a crit version for plus 35 critical hit rate. That's a huge thing to consider. But total attack with that plus 45 attack is 250. All right, that's just talking about attack value. Obviously, O's TMR, the lowest attack value out of the bunch. Now, let's talk about the mods, right? Sir-O's Katana has a plus 15 mod versus humans, right? You have Purple Lightning plus 5, has a plus 20 slash attack. Quelsard has plus 20 slash resistance penetration. Osafune plus 6 has slash attack plus 15 and critical damage plus 10. And all of you guys are saying, well, Diggs, but I can put runes on O's TMR to make him more powerful, right? So what runes directly affect and what passives directly affect and buff a weapon's damage that wouldn't be on a normal accessory rune, right? So let's put them all out here, which I did, and you'll see that I have a list called potential mods here, right? So you could get slash attack plus 10, slash resistance penetration plus 10, defense penetration plus 10, water attack plus 10, attack 20%, dex 15%, critical damage plus 10, or you could get accuracy plus 10, right? So of course, the reason people are saying that Osas Katana is better is because you get a plus 15 man-eater mod versus humans, and then you can stack this slash attack plus 10, right? Well, the reality is you can only set 6 of these mods, right? So whether or not I had this man-eater here, or whether or not this was slash attack, I'm still going to be setting 6 of these modifiers to enhance my weapon, right? And the great thing about this is you have slash attack, slash resist penetration, defense penetration, water attack, attack, dexterity, critical damage, accuracy. That's 8 modifiers. And you're saying, well, because I have man-eater, you know, I'm going to be dealing more damage because I can use more modifiers, which is not true, right? Because you can actually, right? If you had slash attack plus 20, you would just use the other damage modifiers on your TMR, right? Like you would actually end up with more modifiers, right? And more damage than if you had that plus 15 man-eater. Now, I recognize there are some things here which you need to consider with like attack percentage, dex percentage, right? Defense penetration and slash resistance penetration, right? All of that are things to consider. And I recognize that all these modifiers are not the same. But in reality, when you are comparing like what you're going to be putting on your trust runes for your units, like it's pretty much all the same. Like when we're splitting hairs here between which one of these mods we put on, that's literally what we're doing. We're splitting hairs currently. You know, the difference is going to be so minuscule in the long run here that I really don't think it's worth it. Now, that being said, I do think that O's TMR is good for Astrius, but I also think that you could get away with a purple lightning plus 5 and just turning your TMR ability off. So that's one thing, right? The other thing you have to consider is people are like, oh my gosh, Diggs, right? This is the next part of it. Like, Diggs, no, it's really good because you can set an accessory and an armor, right? Well, let's talk about that. And let's start by talking about the defensive rune options, right? So let's start by talking about the defensive runes that you want to set. Almost always you want HP plus, luck plus, right? Almost always you want slash resistance, magic resistance up, right? You're always going to have those on TMR runes. Then you could add potentially an elemental resist. You could go for missile resist or pierce resist. So what armor, what accessories would you want to set where you could set an armor and an accessory that would put you ahead of others? And there's a couple of things here to talk about. Single hit resistance and AoE hit resistance are of course the thing that you think about first. And unfortunately, the only way to set both single hit and AoE resistance with accessories and an armor, right? Or with accessories is by using pod and by using, you know, potentially the area of effect plus 10 armor. Can't think of the name off the top of my head, but that's the first way that you're going to get 2 buffs that are very defensively powered that could potentially justify setting a weapon TMR, right? You only have 1 pod. Most players don't have pod. So the question is, what are you going to be setting in that accessory slot that's going to make it worth it? Well, there's a few pieces of gear, right? You could be setting 3 stars. You could be setting Alexandrite ring. If you're on a mage, you could be setting Galmia's cloak or Soul of Dalmassa. That's pretty much it. Almost everything else can be found on your TMR rune slot on the offensive or defensive side. So unless you're setting single hit resist, AoE resist, maybe even status ailment resistance, it's not going to be really worth it. And I would say very few people actually have the level of account, the level of equipment to actually pull off a TMR weapon build. I would say, you know, probably this would be like top 1% play, making a difference in damage you deal and damage you receive. Like the amount of difference in attack percentage and defense percentage that we're talking about here is literally only going to matter in top play. Now, I do want to point out there are some TMR weapons that I think are really important to talk about, but it's not the TMR weapons people are talking about. Everybody's talking about Inga Staff. They're talking about, I believe it's Crimson Rapier with the slash attack resistance, right? Inga Staff with the magic attack and spirit resistance penetration. Inga Staff, you're going to run into the same problem, right? Where you're, you know, potentially setting mods that are going to overlap with other pieces of gear. You really have to make sure that you have the right pieces of gear set for accessory and armor. Of course, we do have Galmia's cloak, so all of a sudden, now that you're setting Galmia's Cloak, potentially you are offsetting any plus magic TMR rune that you would have set for the passive. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to do there, right? Soul of Thalmassa, well, now you're just going to take magic attack resistance off the defensive rune. Like, you just have to, like, the amount of effort to make Inga's staff work is so difficult compared to the Staff of Providence. I don't know why anybody isn't talking about the Staff of Providence. It has a really high magic attack on it. It has single hit resistance plus 10. Like, it would make so much more sense for a mage TMR weapon to be talking about that piece of gear. Now, on the other side of things, we also have Maraga's Axe. Very few people are mentioning Maraga's Axe. Maraga's Axe has a unique effect on the weapon, right? It has starting AP up, which is very important. Nobody's talking about it, right? Like, these are the types of TMRs that would be really good as weapon TMRs. You know, not something like Inga's Staff, not something like Siros Katana, right? Even the slash resistance sword, like, I don't think, you know, maybe for Agrius it would be okay, but the amount of fine tuning and adjusting, and in the long haul, the amount, or sorry, not Agrius, Celeste, maybe for Celeste, like the amount of fine tuning and adjustment you're going to be making for that, when in reality you could set, you know, something significantly easier. You could get significantly more plus agility by setting more agility focused defensive runes, right? I don't see it as being worth it, right? The only, like, this is not even to consider that if a unit has access to elemental weapons, if a unit has access to Lara's pistols, right, or any other type of weapon like that, which is a lot of units in the game, void TMR weapons completely. TMR weapons will completely be useless for that unit, right? So there's just a lot of situations where, you know, I'm hearing people say, you know, well, Diggs, this TMR weapon is going to be way better than anything you have, right? That's not true. Yeah, it's a really cool build, right? Yes, you could potentially build a unit for a single specific matchup situation, right? Or you can make a TMR built specifically for a unit that will probably have more modifiers because you're building that TMR weapon for that specific unit in that specific situation. But in the broad sense and in the broad scheme of everything, TMR weapons just aren't going to be worth it, especially with +6 coming out in the near future. Like, you are going to be completely taking any TMR weapons that you've customized and made and probably toss them in the trash. Anyway, that's my hot take. I hope you guys kind of see where I'm coming from with this. This has been a huge discussion. I've had it with Cuckington in my guild chat. I've had it with Odaiba, who is, he plays on the JP side and he plays JP meta, right? So we've talked about this, Mesomink as well. And I really don't see TMR weapons being long-term investments or even making a big enough difference to actually build and use. Anyway, everybody, or if they do, you're using the wrong ones. Like, why is nobody using the Staff of Providence? It makes no sense to me. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.